Who's there? Welcome to City Skylines. Today, I bought this game earlier this year around my city, and after going bankrupt twice, and in future videos, this is what I'm going to do. I've worked on some additional work city in my city, gotten it to this point. I have learned quite a bit, but there's also a lot of things that I don't understand why they've happened. For instance, why the population has not gone up quicker at this point as it did in the beginning. This area that the game starts you out in is mostly commercial and offices, and this I had created after I had done the core city. Over here across the river there is a high area, and what I haven't been able to understand is why there's a steep bluff on the backside or away from the river, as well as something close to the river. Also, there's some kind of problem with power, and I really can't see why that would be, but I'll work on it a little bit as long as we're here. Now, the reason I have two bridges is that I was working with a dam here, and this bridge that's in the foreground flooded. In fact, quite a bit of the city flooded and was devastated. That, as you would imagine, did not help the population, but it has never really recovered since then. And like I say, I don't understand why. Generally, roads, and I think bridges even more so, are fairly expensive to maintain. In fact, a lot of things like power lines and that sort of thing. So I probably ought to get rid of one of those bridges. Probably the older one, the first one I had installed. Now we're going to start moving across the city, looking at some of the different areas. And one thing I did that probably wasn't good, I actually spread quite a bit of the city out. I would go to a different area and start building roads and infrastructure, and I don't know if it would have been better to have kept everything together or not. Now if we move across here, again, this is this area of offices and commercial is mainly in there. And then in the top part of the view here, there's residential there. And then see, I come across the highway and I started a new area. And this area on, I guess it would be the west side of the highway, or the left side as we're looking at it, you can see there's quite a bit of traffic problem there. I've worked with that quite a bit, and it's a lot better than it was, but it still is not very good. And then we come across the highway into this area here. We have a subway station up in there. And there's also a sewage treatment plant and a generating plant that I've actually got closed down now, because with so many people leaving or dying one way or another, there's not as much demand for a lot of these things. Now this is an industrial area here. This is a forestry area, and I designated this as such. It's called Davy Park. And what I've never been able to understand, there's just constantly lots of buildings being abandoned. Now I did later on put a cargo terminal over here, and that seemed to have helped. But there's still, as you can see, still a lot of businesses being abandoned, and I don't know why. Now originally I had the cargo terminal on the other side of the highway, And you can see the cargo train terminal there. I've even got one there. I'm not quite sure why I did that. But anyway, I did not realize that it was a good idea to have more than one cargo terminal, and it used to be over in here, not too far from where I've got highlighted the passenger terminal, and it created a huge bunch of traffic coming to and from the cargo terminal to this industrial area. And you can see this convoluted mess of roadways that I built over this interstate highway, and it did pretty well alleviate the problem, but it still was fairly bad there. But it finally got to the point where when I put that cargo terminal there, it was a lot better. Now in this area, I put a lot of the tourism things to get together there. You can see Statue of Liberty, the Expo Center, the stadiums there, and just a whole lot of other things. I thought that might work out well for tourism. I don't know if it has or not. I think it's working a little bit better than I used to have the Statue of Liberty down close to the interstate highway and an exit right there, and I would have thought from the interstate highway that there would have seen, people would have seen it and stopped, but it didn't. Actually seems like it does a little bit better over there. It's fairly close to the train terminal, so tourists coming in can get to it fairly easy. There's buses that go up in there. Now this part of the city is mostly residential, and that was one of my early parts of my city that I built. This over on the left is an industrial area, my first industrial area, and it was terrible, just a lot of abandoned businesses. This traffic circle that I built myself, again, I had two streets originally coming into the city, and they had so many intersections, just traffic got tied up. I tried at first putting a lot of bus routes to alleviate that, and the trouble then is the buses started tying up the traffic. So I put in this homebrewed traffic circle because I find a lot of times the traffic circles that are in the game are just way too big. I would have had to destroy way too much stuff. So I went ahead and constructed this myself. It doesn't look very good, but it seems to work pretty well. And then up there, there's a tunnel that goes south underneath the center of the city. That one to the right goes to the north, and I built those two tunnels under the city to move a lot more traffic. And then this is over in this industrial area. And you can see how a lot of the stuff, a lot of businesses were abandoned and moved out. I've got a hospital here because I've recently had a lot of sicknesses, so I built a bunch of hospitals. Probably some of them are going to have to shut off in time. I also put a cargo train terminal over here to take care of that industrial area. This is another area that I built when I came out of the central city. This has got commercial and residential, and see there's a hospital there. In fact, there's two hospitals in there, and then there's a lot of other things, like I built a park, and I built a solar generating station there, and there are schools and other things. And this up in here is mostly residential. And maybe I should have connected these areas, put in streets, utilities, and zone. But again, I came off with a separate area. I thought that might work better, but it doesn't seem to be. And then there's a passenger station over there. And this is mostly residential and commercial over here. And And then, of course, over there I put a medical center, and you can see also there's a hospital there too. There's a high school. There are some schools. In fact, there are 2 high schools. I think I was, head overcrowding in the schools. Then here's a cargo train terminal, and I zoned an industrial area there, and as you can see, it never has done very well there. And I'm not sure why. I thought sure with an industrial area there and a cargo terminal. There's the fishing island and the floating cafe. What I did here, I dammed up the stream, and then I excavated an area and then put a channel through there to bring the water over. But those have never been real popular. Then over here you can see there was a hospital and some other things here. What I did, I tried to make this an upscale, even have a cemetery here. Tried to make this an upscale area, and I put more of the services down at the bottom, and then I zoned some commercial and then a lot of residential up here. Well, at first there was hardly anything being built up here. So you can see I put a bunch of parks, park with trees, bouncy castle, dog park, small playground, carousel park, tennis court, baseball court. That still didn't attract a lot of people, so what I ended up doing, or a lot of building I should say, and of course people, I ended up giving them quite a few incentives, and that seems to have finally started things off, gotten things going. Down here there's some zoning. I thought people would want to live right along the waterfront there, but they don't seem to. It would appear that this is not like it is in real life. Then over in here I did a lot more building. Again, this was an area that flooded here, and that's why there are 2 bridges, and I probably ought to change that. There's an industrial area here, and it's supposed to be a real high, another hospital, but a real high area of forestry. Let's take a look here. See, that's showing an extremely high area of forestry, but yet these businesses all keep going out of business, and I have no idea why. Here's an area of commercial and residential, and there are some stores there. There's a couple of big stores, and then of course the usual police station, fire station. There's some schools. That department store is a big one. Then over here you can see on this bridge, it was the same thing that flooded there, and I had to move some of the roads around. This was an area of very productive farmland, so I've zoned this for farmland. Well, as you can see, the businesses come and go. There's very few businesses that are operating here now. So I decided I'd put some residential and commercial over here, and I thought that might encourage the farming, but it hasn't seemed to. This is an area of high oil production, and I put that up here. This is somewhat the same thing, not quite as bad. There's not quite as many businesses moving out. And I'm going to need to check this. I think the oil is pretty well gone. So I probably need to, yeah, see there's not much left there that's showing. I probably need to just switch this over to something else. So anyway, another hospital. I got plenty of those, and like I say, if people quit getting sick all the time, I'll have to do something about that. Anyway, I thank you for watching. You can like, subscribe, and comment below. May you have a blessed day.